What's up, YouTube watchers? My name is JT, and I have multiple sclerosis. Today, I want to watch a video of a woman's diagnosis with MS and her story, and I want to see if anything correlates between our stories. Let's go. My diagnosis story.
Hi, my name's Sam. I'm 27 years old and I was diagnosed with MS in
It's young.
2015. I'm here today to share with you my journey through the diagnosis.
MS symptoms.
I guess I first started noticing symptoms, or what I later would find out would have been symptoms, quite a few years before I was actually diagnosed. It's hard to really think of exactly when they started because things become the norm. But I definitely started noticing things a long time.
What she's saying is when she said things become the norm, it's because when things happen to you, like, say, your arm goes numb or your fingers are tingling, you kind of didn't know what was going on, but it was really MS and it was normal at the time, and you had to deal with it. That's what she's saying here, I think.
Time before my actual diagnosis came. The first things that I really sort of had were in my hands. They would go numb.
Yeah,
It wouldn't necessarily be both of them at the same time. It would either be one or the other, and it
right.
would sort of mainly affect my little finger and index finger.
Mine tingles all the time. Like it is, everything's not tingling today, anything or anything. But usually it's these two fingers that tingle every other day, and I'm like, you know, so yeah.
And it sort of spread down sort of to my wrist. And essentially they would just go numb, which in hindsight was obviously a relapse because it would be like it for a little while and I'd struggle, and then it would slowly gradually start to get a bit better. This went on for quite a few years, and even though I did have some testing around it, nothing ever really led came of it. And because it would eventually go away, I kind of learned to cope with it, I guess. I remember when I started a new role at work and I was in front of some people and I was asked, or I had to write something, and it was my right hand that was playing up at the time. And I just remember having to put all my concentration into trying to look normal, or to be able to write normal in front of everyone, because
Yeah, my writing sucks now. I used to have beautiful cursive writing, all perfect and neat. Now it's just like chicken scratch, like the teachers used to say, chicken scratch.
at the time I had no clue what was going on with me, let alone then if somebody had said, oh hey, why are you writing funny, I wouldn't have even known where to start explaining it to people. Another symptom that started to appear, that was more of a gradual decline as opposed to overnight there was the problem, was that I started to have problems with my bladder. And that is something for a lot of people that is
I'm lucky I don't have that yet. Hopefully I don't get it. But that's a serious thing. It can lead to a lot of other things going on with that. So
a very private subject matter, and
yeah,
it isn't something that you openly want to discuss with people. So whereas if anyone noticed anything with my hands, I didn't feel ashamed or embarrassed in any way to just say, oh, I don't know what's going on with them, they're playing up. But whereas trying to explain issues you're having with your bladder to people when you don't actually know yourself what the problem is can be really difficult.
the diagnosis.
I went into hospital in July 2015, which is where I received my diagnosis. Even though it wasn't my formal diagnosis at the time, I'd had a lumbar puncture and an MRI, and actually had to wait for the results of the lumbar puncture to get the official diagnosis. But it was then in
Lumbar puncture, I think, is like I got like a spinal tap, a lumbar puncture. I believe that's what that is.
In July 2015 that MS was brought into the equation, and I pretty much left hospital 99% sure that it was MS because all the doctors had said it, they just needed the results to back up what they were saying. So after that, I was referred to a different hospital that had specialists, neurologists, consultants, to start the review and I guess to see about medication and find out what the next steps were going forward. The time that passed in between that, like I said, it's all just a bit of a blur. Everything kind of happens and you just
Yeah,
go along with it, I
yeah.
guess.
You have to choosing. So it seems like she just went into the hospital and right away they started testing and doing other things. Well, for me, it took like 2 months for them to figure out I had MS. She said she just went to a hospital. They did some tests on her, went to another hospital. She didn't say how long she was in there, but I'm thinking like how she was laying it out, like it didn't take long for her. Mine took at least 2 months in the hospital with them testing. They took 33 or 34 tests on me, and I really don't remember like a lot of it, but I remember them telling me that number of tests they did on me. Choosing a DMD.
The team that I met at the hospital where the specialists were absolutely brilliant. I first sat down with my neurologist when it came to choosing a medication, and he gave me a overview of every medication that was out there, and then sort of zoned in and gave a bit more detail on a couple that he believed would be best for me going forward. After that, I then saw one of the MS nurses that are there who basically did the same, laid out all of the information on what was possible for me to be able to take, and again in more detail went through the ones that they believed were more suitable for me.
Wow, she had like a whole care team and every. I didn't have that. Like I had to do my own research. They didn't like give me pamphlets, little medicines that I could take for the MS. So I chose one, and it was called Rebiff, and it was like an injection pin into your thigh, and I did that, and the effects of that just made me like had gave me a lot of anxiety. uh I would when I would settle down from that, I would start getting a little depressed and start thinking about, wow, I have MS and I'm gonna have just all my life because there's no cure. So I had to stop that medicine. And finally, I decided to start on this medicine called Tec Federa, and that is the medicine that I still take to this day. And it's pretty good. I haven't had a relapse in a while. I'm not sure how long it was I had a relapse. My mind is it's kind of all the time, but yeah,
They give you all the information to take away with you, so it wasn't a case that I had to make a split decision there and then. I was
she
given
got
leaflets on
lucky.
it all, directed to the MS Trust decisions page, which back then had all the information on of each one, and now I believe you can sort of select. It's sort of like a Dropbox that you
I
can
wish
select
it was
through to
easy for
find out
me
more about
like
each individual
that.
medication. So I found that really helpful because it's all
Yeah.
well and good, and it is nice that the specialists go through it with you, but personally myself, it's sometimes a bit hard because you sit there, and even though they don't overwhelm you with information, it is a big choice, and it is a lot to take in at that time. So sometimes you can walk away, or I found that I'd walk away from the meetings with it just kind of had gone over my head a little bit, and I wasn't really
Yeah.
retaining the information that
Yeah,
they told me,
exactly.
or I'd gotten a couple of the medications muddled up on what did what.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the MS Trust Decisions page was fantastic for help, and all the stuff that they gave me as well, like the paperwork and the information on all the different tablets, was great.
Like I said, I had to do my own research. She had it where people were actually giving her choices of the medicines that she wanted to take. I wonder why I had to do my own research for the medicine. See, I didn't get that help, so it's different.
And like I said, they didn't make me make a decision there on the spot. So I went away, and I think they gave me a week before they contacted again. And during that time, I just made sure that I was really familiar with the two that they'd narrowed it down to, and I kind of try to assess, like, right, which will affect have the least impact on my life or my lifestyle. I spoke to my family, I spoke to my mum and dad, and gauged their opinion on what they thought would be best for me. And I spoke to my sisters around their opinion on what they thought would be best for me. At the end of the day, it was my own decision to make, but it was nice to kind of sound off my thoughts and see what people, or see what my family were thinking as well. So
That's great that she had her family behind her and helpful with that. Um, I didn't have anybody at the time. Uh, Matter of fact, my father died like right when I got diagnosed. He died of stage 4 throat cancer. Like 2 weeks after I got diagnosed. So that's who I was living with. I was helping him with the cancer, and then I ended up getting diagnosed with MS. And then he died just shortly after that. So having a good support team is great for family. Support it. I mean, that's wonderful for her.
after a week, and after speaking to my family and really thinking it through, I'd made my decision on what one I was going to choose.
The emotion side of an EMS diagnosis. Emotional.
As I mentioned before, my actual diagnosis was quite a quick process, in the sense that I was only in hospital for 1 week, and during
Exactly.
that week was when I had all the testing and left pretty much knowing that MS was what was causing the problem.
Wherever she lives was great. They know what they're doing. And it took 2 months for me to get a diagnosis. But in a way she's lucky that she had the right medical team to do the proper diagnosis procedures and all that. I don't know what I'm talking about. Let's just watch the video.
Problems that I was having. The reason that I went into hospital was because I'd had a bigger relapse that had affected my walking. So slowly throughout the year, my walking had just got worse and worse, and it was becoming harder and harder for me to walk or to stand or to do anything really with my legs. So that's kind of what led to the hospital admission, and then to the diagnosis of MS coming forward. Now, I think because it all happened so quickly, I don't ever really remember how I felt. I was in hospital, and I wasn't ever really, I don't know, it's hard. I know that when I tried to tell some people, I got upset and I would cry, but I don't ever really remember being on my own in the hospital and feeling really sad. I had a book that I think I just buried myself into, and I just shut out everything that was going on around me, and I just focused on that, which I guess did really help. But yeah, I don't actually remember being in hospital and feeling a certain way. I guess I just sort of was a bit numb to it.
Yeah,
I didn't understand what MS was really,
exactly.
and
Me either.
there was a sense of relief as well that now I knew what it was and it could be fixed, and I was going to have these steroids that were going to get my walking
Steroids,
better
like, yeah.
again. So yeah, a
It's the
mix of
only thing that
emotions
they can give
really
you
in that
for a
week that I was
relapse.
first in hospital. I think that when
Steroids,
you're
devil.
actually going through
Devil.
something, like when
Steroids.
it's something that's happening there and then that you have to deal with, it's easier to sort of suppress the emotions or thoughts that are going through you because you almost go into survival mode
Yeah.
and you're like, right, I have to deal with this because it's here, it's pending, it's something that has to be dealt with right now. So, like I just said, during the hospital and the recovery from not being able to walk very well, all that I probably was focused on was getting better and resting. And I tried to not let my own thoughts and feelings get carried away at that time.
When she was talking about it with her friends and she started crying. Well, let me tell you something. You, MS affects your emotions. Sometimes you could just start laughing for no reason, and people around you be like, "Why are you laughing at?" And I'll be like, "Ah, it's MS, and you don't know anything about it." But in other situations, you could just start crying, get really, just really down and out, and start crying over nothing. It's it's crazy.
For me personally, I feel that the struggle or the acceptance of the diagnosis probably became came a little later on. And even though there wasn't a point where I've ever had a complete breakdown over it, it has been hard to accept that this is here for life. It's
Mm-hmm.
something that I have to, deal with daily. And I guess at first, coming out of hospital and I'm starting to feel a bit better than I had been, you sort of, there's relief. Like you're relieved that you're going to be better and you're thinking, right, I'm going to go back to normal,
Mm.
which can then be hard. Well, I found for myself, it could be hard that I never really got back to how I was before. Going through the diagnosis and getting used to living daily with MS is a big thing, and there are a lot of emotions and thoughts and feelings that come with it. And personally, if there's anything that I can share from my journey to help anyone else out there, is to talk to people about it.
Yeah,
I I originally spoke to my friends about it, and I had such an amazing support
that's
system
great.
within family, friends, my other half, that were there for me. But it wasn't until, you know, time went by that I did start talking more openly about my MS, that I feel, I don't know, I guess I felt more settled in myself. You're always going to have those days when you just want to stay in bed and cry about it. If I'm perfectly
Yeah.
honest, it's just that. But you could live a completely different life, and you could be completely healthy and have a bad day where you just want to stay in bed and cry all day. You've got to take the good with the bad,
Yeah.
and it's not like that every day at all. By far, I still live an amazing life and am happy most of the time. So when you are having those days where you're struggling with your diagnosis, if it's new to you, or you're feeling alone or anything like that, then just talk to people, share how you're feeling, and I can guarantee you it will make you feel better.
Well, that was a very interesting story, and I wish her luck in her MS journey in life. You guys, please subscribe and like the video. And until next time, peace.